How's it going, YouTube? Coming at you today with another video, and you already know what time it is. It's Where to Handtrap. We're about to get back into it. We understand the format. The format's a little bit interesting, but like it's coming together, and everyone's understanding like what more to play and like what the ideas are, what the lines are. So I have a more definitive video for you on where to Handtrap for a lot of the new decks that we'll be seeing. So I do hope that you enjoyed today's video because there's a lot to talk about. If you haven't already checked out my sponsors over on Imperium Duelist, Dragonshield, Gem, CloudSupplyCo, Riw Hobbies and Games, Grimoire, or ChainLink, definitely go ahead and look at all of them down below in the description. Without further ado, let's hop right into our first deck. The first one we got is Yubel. I had this as a teaser on my YouTube and my Twitter. So just kind of talk about this. One thing that I really want to note here is a lot of people ask me, do you just imperm the Samsara? Well, there's a huge problem with that because like if you imperm the Samsara and then they just get it back with like the Grave Squirmer, then it's a little awkward because it feels like you wasted a hand trap. I'm probably always just going to go ahead and hit like the Yubel instead. I think the Yubel is like the best one to hit here. You can hit like the Yama, which is equally impactful, but I think hitting the Spirit of Yubel is definitely the way to go about things. Ashing the Samsara Lotus is definitely the same thing as like, do you imperm Dryas or do you ash the spell card, the Sowing? I think it's the same instance here. You just wait for the actual card that you can ash and just ash the Lotus. It's so much better to do this instead 100% of the time. Hitting the Yubel here, the effect to float is once per, or not once per turn. The effect to search is once per turn. So definitely just go ahead and shut this down. You don't want them to getting at anything like super crazy. Because like let's say like you hit this like with Imperm and then summon Spirit Yubel and get Mature Chronicle and summon one, they bring back the Samsara and then they just combo you anyway. Definitely not something you want to see happen. The list that I've seen are like 50-50 on Mature Chronicle, but it's still a really good card. So just ash the Samsara. Overall, it's just better. These are always gonna be layered in ways that I think like the top card is better to hit. The bottom card is like the second best. So you'll see that throughout the video. But Spirit Yubel, definitely number one, and then the Yama number two. Ghost Ogre on Nightmare Pain. This is a crazy card. This deck auto folds to you having Lightning Storm, by the way. So siding your Lightning Storm, side in your Duster. Very good in this matchup, especially even evenly. Bell or Crow onto the Grave Squirmer. You want to Crow preemptively, but you want to go ahead and Bell the effect of the Grave Squirmer when it happens. Moving on over to Voiceless Voice, I want to talk about this because there's a lot of different ways that you can hit this deck. DD Crow initially, you want to make sure that if they start off Diviner and you don't have anything else, they'll go Diviner, send Trias, Tribute the Diviner, Crow the Diviner immediately because it'll be in a new location and can't summon low from deck. So they'll just have a random Trias on their board, which is really nice. So this is something where you really want to make sure that you have the Crow for the Diviner when it gets tributed. Otherwise, you can like Crow the low out, or you can Crow the Saphira from the graveyard. It just depends on if you put them on being able to ritual. Now with blessings, it's a little bit easier. So hitting the Saphira is like a really low priority, at least for me. Hitting the low is just better. Even hitting the low now feels weird because of blessings. So definitely Diviner, in my opinion, is going to be the best one to Crow. But you have to make that judgment call as you're playing because sometimes they don't open Diviner. But it is very good overall. You also, if you have a game plan to like clear their board, you can also just like throw the prayers out of their graveyard, which is pretty good too. It also shuts off access to them summoning the old man out of their hand unless they just hard summon it from deck as well. So a lot of things you got to consider. The other Imperm on Diviner, I think anything else is pretty mid. Like you can hit like the low if you want to, but it just feels really mid. Mourner onto the Skull Guardian. This is just the best one in my opinion. Ogre on the barrier. You can hit Blessing. It's just like lower impactful. I'd rather just hit the barrier. It's a lot better because this card's really annoying to play against. So then they have to put up a new one if they want to have like no targeting, right? So highly recommend this one for sure. This one is a little backwards in my opinion. I'd probably rather hit the pre-prep over like a Saphira. You can hit Saphira though. They're kind of like the same thing. It doesn't really matter. But if you have Asher Bell and they lead one of these, you're just going to hit either one, right? Like whichever one hits first, you're just going to Asher Bell. This matchup can be pretty difficult because it's really good at just doing one thing, and usually decks that do that can do it very well. So make sure that you do have a nice variety of hand traps. I cited Bell, Crow, Ogre this weekend, and I played against Voiceless Voice. They went Saphira, I belled it. They went Barrier, I Ogred it. They normal Diviner, sent Trias, Tribute, and I Crow the Diviner. They passed. So it was pretty crazy. Just to follow up with a normal summon of Merly. So, you know, it's really nice, really nice. You want to make sure you have hand traps for this matchup because it can be really difficult otherwise. Tenpai. So let's go ahead and talk about this one. Ash on the Kaiman. This is just going to be standard. You really want to make sure that you can stop this in the battle phase so they can't just kill you. Valor Imperm onto the Hydra so they can't search their summoning and make themselves unaffected. If they already have this, they can search the Kaiman. So just make sure you go ahead and shut down the Hydra. Ogre on the summoning. This is just pretty well thought out already in the format. Like everyone's pretty much on this. Just make sure you have Ogre somewhere. I love Ogre being in the format. This is like my favorite hand trap by far. It's just the fact that like no other hand trap does what Ogre does besides like Gamma. But even Gamma like negates and destroys, and that's why that's at 1. With Baron being banned though, I really want Gamma back. But I mean, at this point we have Ogre and you can hit Fluandre's map when you don't get shifted. So you know, it's pretty nice. And this one is going to be Mourner or Crow onto the Dragonshield target engrave or just on summon. You can Mourner this. It's really solid if you go ahead and banish the dragon that they target with this one. Highly recommend that, by the way. It's very nice. Also, if you let them summon out to 10, then like you're just not playing the game anyway because you can't activate anything in the battle phase once that's summoned. So definitely go ahead and use the Crow onto this one's target or just Mourner it right away. I did have a little picture here of Heretic Seal. If they have to go first and they Heretic Seal bounce something off your board, make sure that you Crow the Heretic Seal out of the graveyard for the same reason we Crow the Diviner, because it will be in a new location and it won't summon from deck. It will not have a window to activate. All right. Melodious. Now, a lot of people have asked me about this just because this is another thing that kind of popped up and everyone's like, whoa, what do we do to this? First and foremost, if you have the ability to run Retaliating Sea, this card just absolutely dumpsters this matchup. Remember that if pendulums go off the board, they do still get banished because they attempt to go to the grave before they go to the extra deck. So they do not get their skills back. They're all gone. But Retaliating Sea in this matchup is insane. Ogre on the couplet, you could hit the refrain because of the foolish. I think hitting the couplet here is just better. Just being able to deny a lot of access to cards from your opponent. And then of course, you know, they can still get their scale back if they fusion, but then they still have to get to the fusion. And maybe they want to pendulum someone first. So I still think this is the best Ogre target here. Definitely just throw whatever target negation you have onto the link too. This card's busted. So definitely go ahead, Mourner, Valor, Imperm, whatever you got, throw it on this one. And then Ash on Ostinato for sure. If they lead solo, you can hit that instead. They both are like a hero lives and require no monsters to be on your board. So whichever one hits first, then you can just Ash that. But especially if they open Ostinato, Ash that 100%. You want to make sure this card does not resolve. For those wondering what the end board realistically looks like, the first fusion says that the activated effects of their fusions cannot be negated. They have one that can like banish itself into Melodious and bounce so many cards and it comes back in the end phase. And the other one targets 3 cards in the graveyard and banishes them. So that's something just to be aware of. The deck itself isn't like super crazy. They have one that they can summon that says they can't be targeted by card effects and they can't be killed by battle. So if they use the effect to like banish itself and another Melodious and that comes back to the board, it no longer like applies to their monsters and you can run them over and target them because it's just when the card is special summoned, and when a card banishes off the board and comes back, it's no longer considered special summoned. Pure Snake Eye. I want to talk about a few things with this. Bell on the wanted poster is still fine. If they lead wanted poster in draw phase, it means that their hand's probably not the best because usually you don't want to show your opponent that kind of card advantage. Because there's no reason for your opponent to know this if you don't actually have to use this right away, because you can always chain it later. So if you have like Ash and the wanted poster, you can just normal summon to Ash and see what they do. If they stop it, or if you search and they drop Droll, then you can chain this. Never activate this in draw phase unless this is your only play. And if you see someone do it, either they just don't know the deck that well, or they're just like not knowledgeable that far into like technical play of the deck. But belling on this is really nice. Crow is kind of weird in this matchup. Like, you don't really want to use Crow, but if you are going to use Crow, you can at least get rid of like the IP is fine. Just because it's a pretty detrimental part of the end board. But if they're on like the hand loop, then potentially just get rid of like the Jet Synchron, which is better, to make sure the opponent can't get to that. But then they can also go for an Oak. So it really depends on like how they open, what they use. Because if they combo with Oak first and then you get like rid of the Jet Synchron when they pitch one out of hand, that's gonna be real crazy. So definitely keep that in mind moving forward. You want to drop Rock before Princess, but if you let them get to Omega, wait for Omega effect and then rock, because the Omega won't go off then. And they're just at a really weird spot after that. So definitely make sure that you hold for Omega, but if they have a board that you can throw rock on before that, just throw the rock because you don't want to get Appaloosaed. Ghost Ogre for Temple is always going to be nice. If they have Flame Barriers as well, then they can still bring one up from Spell and Trap, but still getting rid of the Temple is really important. Valor Imperm onto Ash, this is pretty basic. You want to Ash the original Sin, but if my opponent leads Bonfire, I'm probably just Ashing the Bonfire 100% of the time. That's one thing where they open 4 hand traps and a Bonfire, I'm just going to Ash the Bonfire. So hitting the original Sin, a lot more optimal because it shuts off access to things like Jet, but if they lead this, I'm probably just hitting the Bonfire. Thunderpile, I wanted to mention this because a lot of people are not familiar with this, and if they get hit by this, I want to make sure that you have an idea whenever this comes up. So the first thing I want to mention is you want to Ash the Lubellion, because like the Lubellion is going to be everything for this deck. If they get a Thunder Dragon engraved and they're able to banish it, they're just going to do whatever they need to do, right? So make sure that you are Ashing the Lubellion, and you don't want them to get to Magnemite because it's just free follow-up. If they open the one-off Chaos Space, then sure, just Ash that. But like if they lead Lubellion, I'm probably just going to Ash Lubellion. Valor Imperm goes right onto the Solar. If they normal summon Solar, I'm absolutely hitting that with the Valor and Imperm all day long. Being able to dump like a Dragon Dark and then go like Magnemite, banish it, and continue play, absolutely not. We are never doing that. So I'm always going to hit the Solar because it also allows you to get a free token on your board too, so it's just never going to hit the board. If it is, it's getting negated. The Minerva, Lightsworn, Synchro, some builds play this, some builds don't. It depends on what kind of a pile it is, but usually it's like a Lightsworn, Chaos build. Definitely go ahead and just like Valor Imperm this. You can also hit this one with Mourner, which is nice. But like usually your priority is just Solar. If you see like the Lightsworn cards in there, you can hit the Lightsworn. But just kind of keep that in mind as well. Ghost Ogre on Regain, this is gonna be a crazy hit every time. This card's just so much advantage. You can also just like crow out the Lubellion from the graveyard to make sure that they can't get to like Regain, because that's gonna be really annoying to deal with. And then Bell, you can either Bell Abyssal if you feel like it's really impactful to do so, or you can just Bell the effect of Dragon Fusion to put back, because it puts back from graves as well. So you can just go ahead and Bell this, which is really nice. Put your opponent behind on card advantage. Then I have Centur-Ion for you. So Centur-Ion's a really interesting one. This deck has become a lot scarier, but at the same time, I don't think that it really is like that crazy. When they use the Crimson Dragon effect, you can Ogre it, which is still nice. It's something that I feel like a lot of people don't do because Ogre hasn't really been in the format. But like, remember, the Crimson Dragon has to go back to the extra deck to summon. So if you're able to just hit this thing with an Ogre, it's a lot less scary. You can also Mourner on summon, and if you Mourner on summon, you force them to summon Blazar because your opponent would miss timing on the Calamity. So something else just to think about, which isn't bad if you're in a weird spot and you can play through a negation. Sometimes the Mourner is just better than being completely locked out. Valor Imperm is still really good on the Auxilia or the Legadia. Just because you really want to make sure that your opponent isn't going to be in a good spot with being able to put back into the spell and trap zone. It's always been the same thing. Like if you Imperm Legadia, it's just really awkward because in the end phase, they can't just put something back in the spell trap zone, lock you out, unless their hand's like real good. Ash on Primera is still going to be really solid. If they start Bonfire, I'm just going to hit that, but usually it's just on Primera because you want to make sure they don't have access to the field spell. Something else just to kind of think about. I do want to just hold the Imperm as well, as even for like Auxilia or Legadia, specifically because like even the Legadia being able to get the extra draw and what have you, just things that I don't want to see happen, right? And I believe the Auxilia allows you to like search a Centurion too. So definitely trying to just cut off as much card advantage as possible for this deck. I do hope that you enjoy this iteration of Where to Handtrap. If you've already checked out my Discord, Twitter, Twitch, Instagram, or my Medify page, definitely go ahead and do so all down below in the description. Hope that you all have a wonderful day and subscribe to the YouTube, and I'll catch you all in the next one. Thank you.